Welcome to the DAO Factor. I am your host, Lisa Yu. I'm a crypto and tech investor, entrepreneur, and speaker. I got into crypto in 2017 when I took rental payments in Ethereum, and since then have invested and advised over a dozen companies in tech and in Web3. For those who are new to DAOs, a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization taking the world by storm. Today, I'm super excited to introduce to you our guest, Victoria Liu, founder of Mingle DAO, a singles community looking to make deep, authentic connections. Their mission is to build intimate and diverse young professionals where we can mingle, build, and grow. And their goal is to make fun memories together. First off, Victoria, what are you most passionate about and what motivates you to wake up every day?
Yeah, thank you so much for the intro, Lisa. I think what's really exciting about Mingle is really the transition back to in-person activity and in-person connection. I think a lot of us are very used to a digitized world today. Obviously, like most of the things we do, we used to send mail through letters with stamps. Now we do that with text, and same with dating apps. A lot of dating is done online now. And what we really wanted to do is take a step back because, as the DAO and as my co-founder and I kind of experienced this, it's really about really being present and then also understanding the other person to be a human, which goes back to our community values on respect, communication, and consent, which I think is so important, especially as also two female co-founders. We've experienced the world and maybe some unsavory moments, and we think these values are very important to the ethos of all of our events, all of our kind of processing. And for us, that's what's really exciting is helping everyone reevaluate what in-person connection can look like.
Yes, I love that. And what inspired you to start this? Have you always been kind of a little bit of a matchmaker yourself?
I would say maybe. On occasion, it felt like when the moment, I'm always thinking about people. I think Jenny and I both have that together, and that we're always like, oh, like this person is XYZ. And we care a lot for other people. And of course, I think part of life is almost this natural desire to connect with one special person, or if you're polygamous, that's also another avenue. But yeah, I think we're always interested in terms of just bringing people together, not necessarily matching you, right? Like the focus of Mingle is also not to match you with a specific person. I don't think me or an algorithm should be the judge of who you vibe best with, who you want to spend your next year with, who you want to vacation with. But what we can do is give you opportunities to meet new people. This actually goes back to something I really noticed once I moved to New York, was that, yeah, singles are very much cut out of, many events once you move into past your undergrad stage, and very much I would say 25 and on, there becomes a steady kind of attrition in social circles. And what we're really trying to do is address that by providing an opportunity for people to access a curated community with trusted people, trusted values, that's always going to bring fun to the table and that wants to bring real connection.
Well, that's why it's called Mingle DAO, not
Yes,
Match DAO.
we're ready to mingle.
You're not trying to match people based on an algorithm, but you're just giving people almost like a chance opportunity to meet each other.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Through mingling, they can decide is this someone you want to date, to work with, to travel with, right? There's a whole wide range of connections and relationships that can be formed. And it sounds like you just want to provide that space.
That's exactly it. Safe spaces for our community. Yeah.
I love that. And how did you know that this was going to work? Like, what gaps did you see, I guess, in the Mingle market? And what ways are you looking to solve it?
I would say this comes more out of personal experience. Jenny and I had relatively shared experiences on the apps. You can have, micro ghosting. You can have
micro ghosting.
There's something there's something about being able to not need to confront when something goes wrong when you're, virtual. So there's that. And then the other aspect was really, this is the fun part, right? The origination of Mingle actually comes from an Instagram story. Jenny was going on a Hinge date, and she coincidentally found out that his roommate also was interested in going on a date. And then she just posted a story and she was like, hey, do any of my single friends want to join me for a double date dinner? And like, it was like, oh, dinner is going to be paid for. The guy is like 6'2", works at a hedge fund, something like that. It listed like some characteristics. And we were talking about this. She had like so many responses from her female friends who were single. And we were like, oh, like there's a gap in this, and that people want to opt into a trusted community, right? By doing a double date instead of like a single blind date, you're opting into, kind of bear the trust of Jenny's social network. And that's almost like another aspect to this, in that every time someone is joining, it's on kind of the contingency that this person is going to be representative of our community. And we do want it to be a trustworthy space. So all of that is kind of the buildup. And then we threw one first event and we mimicked it after Singles Inferno. I don't know if you got to watch the show, but it was very hot. That was fun. And we realized like people do want this kind of experience. Even if you're not here for sexual, romantic reasons, and you just want to meet new people, that's still a reason to join. So yeah, that's what we've been mainly chatting over.
That's fun. And is there like a filter process? How do you decide who gets to join the DAO? Do you go through background checks? Like, do you interview each person? Like, how does that work?
I think our community is I think when you look at our app, we have an application. So the first off is like almost the first, layer of trust that we build is when you fill out the application. We ask questions on like, what would your best friend say about you in 3 words? Or, what's your best memory? What's, a form of connection that you desire? What are you looking for when you join the DAO? And the reason why we have this application is, for sure, it's similar to what, Hinge and Tinder are doing, but it's just an initial layer, right? It's building up like an initial digital profile of you when we evaluate who is like going to become the first kind of ring in our community. And then in terms of being able to come to physical events, since they are in person and we do want everyone to have a good time, evaluation for attendance is built upon like, how you interact in our Telegram chat. That's really our big community. I know a lot of DAOs operate out of Discord. We opted for Telegram just for kind of the intersection of non-crypto as well as crypto, because we're not crypto specific. We're open to, any kind of person, any profession. So that was one thing. And then also Telegram feels a little bit more intimate and is a little bit more UI UX friendly. We do Instagram lives as well. And that's another way to engage with our community. We answer, random dating questions. A guy will be like, hey, like, if we got dinner first date, then we were scheduled drinks, but she said she might go to something after. Like, what does that mean? Like, where do I sit? Or like more funny stuff. Like, would you still go on a date if you had a pimple? Just like random discussions on that, as well as being open about sex life. We think like transparency between our members, our community, and like an at-large audience are really important.
It's almost like putting the energy out there, right? If you're able to verbalize what you want in a relationship or in a friendship, then people will be able to meet you where you're at. But if you are unable to vocalize that, then people assume you're okay with what they're okay with. And so I think it is what you talked about, consent. Like, that's such a really important topic, to discuss, because it does have to come from both sides, man or woman. And, as we've seen different stories, from both sides, like, I think it's important that, both sides are fairly heard, and that people are able to get what they want, but they are also, contributing, because this is a community that you're building.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. And what is your background? Like, what is your relationship status? I'm curious to know, and I'm sure some of the listeners are as well.
Yeah, so my background, I grew up in California, Bay Area. I moved to New York, I think around, exactly like 12 months ago. So it's been a year. And my relationship status, I'm single. I'm ready to mingle. But
okay.
My personal thing is that I wouldn't date within the DAO. So that's more like, that's for our community. I just like personally, I mean, yeah, I think everyone is always very curious because they're like, oh, like, are you looking for someone? Is this why you started it? I would say like Jenny and I have adopted the ethos that our DAO is a community. It's like a very extensive friend circle, I would say. And we all make individual decisions. That's something Jenny wanted to pursue, that's whatever. But for me personally, I wouldn't want to. I do in a certain facet, like would
Yeah,
want to keep, I guess, my relationship and my friend group separate. And historically, that's also what I've done. So
got it. Yeah, because I mean, you wouldn't want things to get awkward if you dated someone in the DAO and then now you guys are both in the same, voting circle and you have to share governance with them. It
yeah,
could be awkward, But
yeah, that is
but
my
it
main
sounds
thought.
yeah, you just want to make sure that this is like a trusted friend group. And what is the demographics of this group? Is it, is there a certain age range, like location wise?
Age-wise, I kind of alluded it earlier, but we are focused on later 20s, all of 30s, and early 40s. And this kind of just comes from the same like social circle attrition. It's really just making it easy and frictionless for someone to meet new people without, I would almost argue like the social tensions of kind of just meeting new people at the bar, meeting new people at the club, park, walking a dog. I think certain things can go wrong. When you come to Mingle, you're opting into a community where everyone else has also opted in to spend time with you. And I think that's a very important thing to come in with.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And to address the other part, it's really how to say, we are, I would argue, relatively Asian focused. Jenny and I are both Asian. We have many Asian friends. It just so happens that most of our network is also part of the DAO, and that's been how it's focused. Obviously, we do want to also expand out of New York. Since we're all in person right now, mostly, a lot of our audience that is able to attend our curated experiences do live in Manhattan or like the surrounding boroughs. We are looking to expand to West Coast next, and that's something that's really exciting. But for now, people who are not based in Manhattan can come join through our virtual avenues, which is the Telegram community and then the Instagram community.
That's great. And, what are some of the core values of Mingle DAO as you're building this out? Obviously, it will evolve as the DAO grows and expands into different cities. But what would you like to see maintain, like centered, and what values would you like to keep while it's being expanded and while it's growing?
Yeah, so I would say the focus goes back to three main core ones is respect, consent, and communication. I think these are just what a loving community should share as a baseline. I think on top of that, we're very focused on creating collective memories together and growing together. I think one thing that almost like the digitization has changed is that we're less tolerant of when a situation doesn't exactly fit us. We see this on social media a lot. They're just like, oh, well, he just didn't feel like exactly right. Or he had like my partner or SO just had this one flaw and then it didn't work out. And I think a lot of what Mingle is trying to do is actually build that back up, right? Like think about how to sustain whatever kind of connection you've had with someone, whatever relationship. Think how to grow over pains or initial issues, because that part is probably key in sustaining a relationship long term, no matter the kind, like friendship, relationship, marriage, anything. I think it's really about coming back together, even when pieces have fallen back.
Rather than nitpicking on the one flaw that someone has, how can you look beyond that and develop human connections? Because I mean, I'm of the camp that, it's true connections. It's like, if you don't see a flaw in anyone, then you haven't gotten deep enough in the friendship, right?
I think I'd support that.
Yeah, it's like you have to, when you get to know someone on a deeper level, you will find flaws. There will be, some things that you have to kind of get used to, like habits, right? You might even have like a fight or a mini fight because it really stirs, it's like a test, right, of the friendship and the relationship. If you can actually communicate, like you said, through the problems and the issues and still respect one another. And I think having a community where you can practice those communication skills while you're single will prepare you even better, help you be more prepared when it comes time to joining a relationship.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to say we are the shallow waters as well as kind of and just like a support group in general. Maybe you don't find your significant other in our community, but maybe it ends up being a friend of someone you met through our community or in some frame. It's really just about connecting, building together kind of a universal standard in how we treat our relationships, and then thinking about how to grow together.
And are you thinking of like building an app that supports matching, or is it more everyone comes together, and is it online or is it in person right now?
We consider our main experience to be mainly offline in terms of curated experiences. And so most of the events that we do that are co-ed end up being group dates. We'll do like a group dinner party, group drawing assumptions game. There will be like casino night. There's a variety of themes that go on. And that's been the main ethos, is bringing people together in person. I think in person also, you can really appreciate when someone is human, less so when you have a screen or you can only see their text and you can only see their PFP. It's very much more holistic and worldly experience. Of course, the convenience of digital cannot be denied, but I think in terms of building something sustainable, I would argue that in real life relationships probably last longer.
It's almost you're swinging the pendulum back. It's like we've had this season of online dating, and now you're bringing back offline dating. And
yeah, exactly. Yes.
Post-COVID, everyone's just, definitely hungry for connection. And you're like, hey, let's get together in real life and connect in person. What a novel idea, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it is, I think it's tried and true. And I think that's why we want to bring it back. It's the most universal thing, like to seek an experience from someone else and to share that together. So that collective memory is really important to us.
I love that, the collective memory.
Yeah.
So, with the rise of DAOs, there's now about 5,000 DAOs and
so many.
over 1 million DAO members, right? But we're still in the very early stages. How are you looking to set the example and make this more of a common occurrence? And tell me more about, the DAO structure and how you are organizing this DAO specifically.
Yeah, so our DAO is organized through a committee system. I think this is relatively similar to most DAOs, actually. I do think it mimics modern government to a certain extent. And I think how to say in terms of, we're very nascent as well. We started out in February. We're still figuring things out as well, but it's really about gathering people who want to do things together. And then, amongst those who wants to help organize, who wants to help drive more membership, those are things that we're focusing on. In terms of like DAOs in general, I think it's really just about proving that the model works. I think whenever there's something new, you always have a little bit of friction on, a common buzzword like product market fit. How do you know what experience you're creating, virtual or in person, whatever in between, whether or not that's really addressing a market concern or a market need? And we've demonstrated that just by retention. We have like our retention, I think, is around 80 to 90%. I don't recall the stat now since we've grown quite a bit since we do the metrics.
Yeah. How many members do you have
now? In our chat, so like our at-large community, we have around 200 to 250 people, I'd say, hovers. I wouldn't use the chat as an example, really. That's more like, engaged reach. I would say our community intimately is probably under 100 people. And that's intentional. Our DAO is not trying to pursue exponential growth. It's not kind of what we've heard from our members in terms of what they want to pursue. And it's not like we want to keep you single either. I think people, when they hear the retention, is like, oh, like, so, if you keep on coming back, doesn't that mean you're not like finding success? We don't look at it that way at all. Just
That's
to
what
address
the
that.
apps do. They get you to stay in the app.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, oh, we're the app that's meant to be deleted, or we're going to build whatever. But for us, it's, even if you've moved on to a relationship, the community is there for you. Like you'll have relationship bumps too. Community is there for you in terms of, advisory or support in general. And we'll still we want to host couple events. That's something we haven't experimented yet. We will, but we are hosting the single gender events. And, that's girls' night. Married girls come, long-term relationship girls, single girls like myself. we're all having a great time together because we do want to share experiences with each other. And same thing for the dudes. I haven't left out the guys. They did just like a pub meetup last time. They might do wine and face masks next time. We might steal that idea from them too. But yeah, it's a very
Face
like
mask and wine. That sounds really, really fun.
yeah, exactly, right? We're very intentional. You know, a lot of work is put into think about our themes, think about how we want to kind of create engagement. I would say a lot of events that I've gone to is you're kind of just expected to show up and then have a good time. And I don't think that's how having a good time actually works. You know, you can bring the party with you, but if everyone else isn't also down to party, there's just not a lot of stuff going on.
The intention up front is really key. Because
Yeah.
then the people that come, they have the same intent or the same goal or the same interest in mind. And that creates just an instant connection and there's less of a barrier, right? If it's just a random hodgepodge of people getting together and there's no plan, there's no goal, there's really no like intention.
Exactly.
It just takes longer. It's not that you can't build deep relationships when you just throw a bunch of people in a room, but the intentionality does accelerate relationship building and connections. So that's exactly what you're doing through this DAO.
Yeah. And we have organized activities throughout, maybe some things for intentional flirtation, but yeah.
Tell me about that. Give me an example.
There's just a variety of games that, you know, you can play. Like some of them will be a little bit more sexual. Like one of the drawing assumptions games, it's like you like draw a variety of like regular kind of day-to-day quotidian icons. And then it ends up being that they reveal something about like your subconscious desires or, you know, wishes out of relationships. So that's been fun. Like a house, for example, which is relatively intuitive, means like security, windows mean openness, a snake means sex, sexual desire, but it's just like a variety of different games meant to engage everyone.
Very creative. And like, what are the benefits of running this group as a DAO? Why not just a meetup or, you know, like a Mingles, you know, group? What's the benefits of having this DAO structure? I think you mentioned a little bit about it earlier, but I want to hear, I think some of the listeners want to hear more about why a DAO versus a meetup.
Yeah, so I would actually argue we're very different from a meetup in that, again, like it's about a curated experience. So we're much more intentional about the space we're creating, the people we're bringing in. And the DAO aspect is also just, we want people to have, you know, have choice. If you want to do X event on Saturday, but you're not sure of which activity, we do like a quick governance vote. You know, we don't have a token yet, but we're already initiating this kind of practice so that it's embodied within the DAO structure itself. So, you know, even if before we organize something, it's very much like, what do you guys want to do on a Friday night? You know, we had a selection, it's like club, bar hopping, karaoke, dinner party. Karaoke ended up winning, and we got to hear like a lot of quality singing, myself not included.
Oh, okay.
And that's how we're incorporating that governance aspect. I think one thing we do foresee is that, you know, there is a lot of voting attrition. There's not a lot of interest in voting from a lot of communities that we see in precedent. Yeah, in precedent DAOs.
Everyone wants to have a voice and a vote, but when it's available to them, do they opt out or do they just miss the window? Like, are they just
it's
busy?
Not,
or?
I wouldn't say like it's our DAO specific. It does happen for certain events, but it's just something I've observed from hearing like other people's, you know, other founders of DAOs experiences is that you can get a lot of stuff going. You can make this available, but it's very much mimicking what we see in life outside of crypto, right? Like,
yeah,
are like, let's say Gen
just
Z, like,
real life.
Yeah, exactly. People don't vote, even though they have the opportunity to do so. Thinking about how to engage that, how to encourage it, how to make it systemic is going to be a key point for us.
For sure. Some benefits of the DAO is, you know, the ability to, you know, raise money, make decisions together, right? Govern, you know, vote and operate in a collaborative way.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a meetup is like you just come and take and leave, but a DAO has a sense of contribution. It has a sense of, you know, you're giving your time, you're voting, you're an active participant,
Yeah.
and you're co-owner of the DAO. And so those are kind of some of the key differences and what makes it different than just a meetup.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think it's very much about sustainability and then also contributing to next steps. Like growing together, I think is just a very much big feedback loop for the DAO.
Yeah. And what are your long-term goals with the DAO? Like, are you playing Cupid? Are you bringing in like relationship coaches and experts to be part of this DAO? Are you fostering, connections and conversations that help build relationships? Kind of what are your thoughts of, long-term or near-term growing the DAO, but also long-term growth, like possibly on a global scale and expanding to different cities?
Yeah, absolutely. So long-term scale, we definitely want to be in multiple places. What that actually ends up looking like, if it continues to be in person, maybe it'll be like a variety of spaces in the metaverse. We're paving that out. But one thing we really want to do is kind of redefine how relationships are defined, and then thinking about the I guess different biases that occur today and kind of removing those. I can be in a relationship with my best friend, for example. It doesn't necessarily mean something sexual, something romantic, something with the desired gender. So I think that's something we want to kind of address. And then another aspect is, of course, just scaling in general. Like, what does that look like in terms of internationally? What kind of barriers are there? How do we create a holistic, open community that also addresses everyone's individual goals out of joining our DAO? So that's long term. I would also argue that thinking about how to represent membership, whether that looks like an NFT token or maybe some new form, that's also on the horizon. And yeah, we want to, it's not necessarily going to be always about dating. We're already breaching into just connection with others in general, really fostering that community and growth. And that's something we definitely want to pursue.
Right. I mean, building deeper relationships, friendships, platonic friendships too. I mean, these similar skills required for any type of relationships, like you said, communication, respect, boundaries. What has your relationship experience been? So kind of moving into more of the relational dating experience. What's your relationship been, and what have you found to have worked and not worked in relationships? And what lessons have you gathered, and kind of what would you be looking for going forward?
Yeah, I would say I think I have two main ones, and they apply regardless whether it's dating or friendship. So one of them is, I think both parties need to be very much like willing to make time for each other. It doesn't work when one's
100%.
Yeah, it doesn't work when one side. I think like it's so like intuitive when you hear it, and then when you see it in execution, they're like, oh, like I don't get why they're not so committed. And it's like, oh well, you made certain choices that made it feel like you weren't giving your side of the time, you weren't giving your side of effort and
Right.
energy. And so I think there's always something there in terms of when you have tensions and expectations, they actually tend to like, I would argue, like spin off from almost like tension in terms of time and like thought process. And then the other one is, this is something we actually want to address because it's, I think, a pure play from dating apps or social media in general. Obviously, I'm a big user, but something that has spawned off of it that I am also a victim of is, or like, I guess like user of, is perceived optionality. A lot of people will come to us saying like, I think I can do better, or like, do you think this is like the it match?
Right,
And like,
because there's so many options, because you pull up an app and you can swipe and
yeah,
get a date like same
and
day.
it's
It's like
very
shopping
prevalent in
for groceries.
metropolitan. Mhm. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
super like prevalent in metropolitan areas. I wouldn't say the same for suburbs, but yeah, you see a wide array of options. It's like, you go to the grocery store, you can buy any kind of vegetable, really. Like there's probably 50 varieties out there. That doesn't mean you like every type though. And it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that every type is available for you. And I think that also goes back to the thing I was saying earlier, in that people are not willing to put the effort to make things work. If the shoe doesn't fit the immediate first time, it's almost like you need to let go of it and it's not it for you. When actuality, I think it's really about putting your priorities together, because in any aspect of life, there are trade-offs. And I would say the same for relationships. You know, superficially, maybe you trade off humor for height. You know, I know some girls who really need like a really tall guy, or some guys who really want like a more like standardized beauty look. Maybe there's a trade-off there. You know, you can't have, well, maybe you could, but I argue for the majority of us, you can't have it all. And it's really about prioritizing what you desire most out of your relationship, your other person that you would like to grow with, and then being able to patch together the differences and expectation when they come.
This is just, my personal opinion, but I would love people to move past this superficial, what you see on the outside, and really bond over like a true authentic connection. And, because again, everyone's going to age and look different. And
yes, looks are not for forever.
Right. It's like you might meet someone in your 20s and they might look completely different 20 years. And I've seen that. Like I've seen people from my childhood, I look the same and then they look completely different. And I'm sure you do, right? So it's just interesting because if you don't have that connection that's deeper than what you can see on the surface, like superficial things or height or looks, and that doesn't stay. I mean, yes, someone will stay tall forever, but if you really get the connection right, that's long lasting.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes we might overlook incredible people because of different reasons, whether it's age or like race or upbringing or like their profession. But what really lasts forever is the connection.
I was going to say, like, I think another good litmus test is, why do you want someone who's tall? Or why do you want someone who's, like you said, like maybe more cute or more attractive to you? Like, what is the reason behind that? And why would you want someone like who has a connection fit more or less? Like where you yourself stand. I think it's very much about building up your own self-awareness for why you desire the things you do, and then implementing and executing upon that, which sounds more technical, but it's not.
Yeah. And what do you think about the relationship with yourself? Oftentimes they say that, when you work on the relationship with yourself, it really improves the relationship with others.
Yeah, this is something we discuss a lot in our Telegram group. It's very much like an open forum in terms of discussing relationships, personal growth, and understanding yourself and your own, like how you love yourself, how you treat yourself, I think is almost number one. We cited a study a while ago, and it was people who are happiest in the relationships are not just like the ones who found the perfect pair for them. They're actually the ones most content with themselves. So it's not even really about your partner. It's not dependent on the other person. It's very much dependent on you. And I think, I think that's something we struggle with now. Social media has made it even more prevalent. I'm not saying it's the root cause, but I think it's made it more prevalent in terms of why maybe sometimes we're less satisfied with ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are presenting themselves as their inauthentic self. You see like highly filtered photos. It's almost unrecognizable. It's like you meet them in person, they don't even look like their photos. I have a friend who's a relationship coach, and she created a snippet that, it's so important to be authentic, in your profile, because then you're a liar. If you're presenting yourself to the world and you're unrecognizable, like the other party is going to feel catfished, and you're going to be inauthentic to yourself. So really, starting with, I guess, like one question I had for you was, what's your advice for people who are single now? Because I think a lot of times while people are single, they try to go over the top. They try too hard to present this perfect image of themselves, but they're actually pushing people away. They're not able to attract authentic people because they haven't spent the time being authentic themselves. So what would be your advice to them?
Yeah, I think one, I definitely agree with your friend who says be genuine. I think another one is find what you really love about yourself and think about why someone else would also love you for that.
I love that.
I think you should at least have one thing you love about yourself. And I think that's really important. And that self-love is also an indicator of just, expectations for yourself, how you carry yourself. And I think someone who's confident, someone who's to a certain extent satisfied with certain aspects is very attractive for a lot of people. It's just, I think almost at that point, like I would feel like an evolutionary thing. We're just naturally attractive to more confident people. And I think loving yourself builds upon that. And, if there's something that you're not satisfied with, I would think about how you want to grow with it or how you would come to love it. I know a lot of friends of mine actually who had like weight journeys, especially for men, less they're less self-conscious about body image because, they're happier with the way they look bigger or they're happier with the way they look leaner. And I think, they put work into that. And I think that doesn't go unappreciated. Maybe somebody doesn't understand all the work that went into it, but they do see the output. And that's something that would make you more attractive, not just from the looks, but also the way you carry yourself and the way you talk about yourself. I think all of those exhibit, a lot of internal work. And I think that's something important because you don't just go to a relationship looking to get something out of it. You need to think about where you're contributing to it as well. It sounds transactional, but
100%.
I would say it's very much, that kind of balance, right? And you don't just go to a relationship because you want, I don't know, like a 24/7 therapist or a 24/7 person to like cheer you up and pump you up. You go in because you want to grow together with this person and you enjoy their presence. You want to see them excel. You want them to see yourself excel. I think those are great, like just things to think about. I mean, I myself am working on this too, right? I wouldn't say like next day I can land a guy or something. I am also working on it. And because like I'm working these through together, I would argue it's almost like I can give more real experience. Because I think someone who's been able to just stick together for a long time, I don't know if they necessarily have the same like grooves to like understanding the different niches and approaches and like what you see.
Yeah. Well, what do you love about yourself?
I love mostly actually like how easily I laugh. Well, the drawback is that I cry easily too. But I laugh really easily. So like when I meet someone funny, I like really stick to them. I find humor very attractive. So when I meet someone funny, I'm like, oh my God, yeah. And then I like just spend more time because I think, I enjoy laughing. I don't know someone who doesn't enjoy it, but I laugh super easily. So
that's great. I'm sure people would love being around that.
I'm super easy. Like my audience, I'm great for bad jokes.
Amazing. Well, sounds like you're building this really incredible community. So how can people join the DAO and how can people follow Mingle DAO?
Yeah, so we are on Twitter, Instagram. We have our own website, mingledao.com, and we have an application. It's a community kind of approach to it. So of course, when we look at who wants to join events, it's very much a community approach in that everyone else who's also joining gets to kind of have a say. So that's the main aspect. We'd love to have people engaged more on socials in terms of like understanding where people feel unfulfilled in a community.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's very much, I would argue, like community driven with still, I'm not going to say we're completely decentralized. We're not, someone to like really execute on events. I don't think I could decentralize that. So that part is still centralized. But yeah, we're obviously always looking.
People can vote. People can vote, opt into these events. So that.
Yeah, exactly. We're still building out the specific mechanisms, but these are things that we're putting in progress. We're learning as we go. And we're obviously excited to hear from everyone. We want to hear your woes. We want to help. And we want to be there, to grow our community and to learn together.
Amazing. And what are some events listeners can look forward to?
We're actually going to have a series of NFT events, actually. So NFT NYC is coming to New York next week.
Fun.
Yeah, yes. If you're in town, come join.
Yeah, I definitely would love to stop by.
Yeah, obviously.
Mingle, ready to mingle.
So we'll have those. And then we, for those based out of New York, we'll be launching a couple of larger scale events. We had a pretty big kind of, I would argue almost like giant pregame /party last week. And that was a really good kind of experience. And that was just at a bar we rented out. There's a variety of games. We had a partnership with Subtle Asian Party. And that was just exciting. I would say keep on the lookout for more sexual wellness events for our ladies. We think it's very important. And then for the dudes, some more bonding and, getting to hear both sides of the perspective.
That's great.
Yeah.
And what's your advice to people who are just getting into Web3 and deciding, should they join this DAO or start a DAO? What would be some of your lessons learned that you want to pass on?
I think my first piece is that there is a lot of information, of people, of good and bad. So I know obviously we always say DYOR, but and it's okay. I would say take it in steed. What you're most naturally attracted to, I think from the beginning, is probably what's going to stick with you. I wouldn't force, I have not, maybe this is a bad part of me, I haven't forced myself to completely learn all of the DeFi projects out there. I'm just not that naturally attracted. And I don't think anyone should force themselves either, because you'd probably get more experience and more enjoyment out of an initial wading into the pool by going with what you're most interested in. If DeFi is what you're absolutely interested in, by all means, you should go after it. But I think that'd be my first piece of advice, because once you build a good kind of internal relationship with crypto, how you understand it, how you embrace it, how you implement it, I think you can branch from there. But when you're just getting started, I would definitely stick to what you're naturally attracted to, so that you don't feel kind of alienated, or you don't feel
burdened.
It's too advanced or in some way. I felt that very easily when I looked at the different, swapping mechanisms. And I think you should stick with what you're familiar with, then build out.
Yeah. You don't need to learn all the things at one time.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
can, of course, there's NFTs, there's DAOs, there's layer ones, there's different blockchains. There's, now, DAOs are, up and coming.
Yeah, I know. So there's a whole world.
Literally different verticals within Web3. And it can feel like a lot all at once, almost like a fire hose. Mm-hmm. So I like your advice, if you're passionate about finance, DeFi might be a good entry point. If you're, you're building new technology, there are a lot of, layer one platforms or decentralized applications that you could potentially build. For sure, for the community builders out there, DAOs are a perfect fit. And, for the artists, clearly the creatives have flocked into NFTs, and they've done really well with some initial launches. So there's kind of something for everyone. So I think what's really exciting is to see kind of a more diverse set of people get into Web3, and specifically to see, because leaders rise up and to organize. Because really the whole goal is to create more freedom, access, and ownership, and to do this as a collective. So I think it's really awesome that you're taking the initiative, and that you and your co-founder are just trying to, make people feel less lonely, give people a safe space to connect with each other. I love, that your mission is to, build intimate, friendships and make memories together. Because
yes,
that's what life is all about. Yeah, it's those memories that can last forever. So just to end, thank you so much for being part of this podcast, for being one of the first in season 1. I want to hear, what is your personal motto that you live by, or a quote that inspires you that you want to leave with the listeners today?
I think this is going to follow the theme, but just think about how people will remember you. Yeah.
Wow. Think of how people will remember you.
I have pretty good memory, so I'm always I want to be aware of how others are remembering me.
Yeah. I mean, that's your legacy, right?
Hopefully.
After this life, after we pass, or even if we were to move to a different city or a different neighborhood, it's those people are going to remember you for something. And it's those connections that last forever. So I love that. Such a good perspective. So wonderful to speak with you. And I can't wait to hear more about Mingle DAO, all of your events. I'll definitely stop by and
come through.
Let some of my friends know who are ready to mingle. And definitely let me know when you expand to Los Angeles.
Yes,
that's where
I'm ready. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're ready. Great. Awesome. So happy we got to chat, Victoria. And we'll definitely be following your journey. MingleDAO.com. Thanks for joining us this week on Season 1 of The DAO Factor. Follow The DAO Factor on Twitter and YouTube to watch videos of our podcast, where we'll be dropping a new video every week featuring key leaders of DAOs, community builders, and leaders in Web3.